Well, hello, my fellow car milers. How you doing today? It is a Sunday afternoon, and I kind of put the Porsche, still working on it, I am, but I kind of taking a little break from that. I've got to get ready to do some things to it, but I thought I'd start prepping some things on the USACC build, and I just want to share with you what I pretty much have come to figure out what I'm going to do. I have not started anything. I haven't really touched this since we looked at it in that last video. So I want to do some little more closer looking, but I do have a little bit more of a idea. Man, I love everybody. You all jumped in and gave me so many great opinions on the wheels and stuff that I asked, and a couple other things. Very cool. This is cool. We might actually, for fun, actually read these instructions on this one, but I'm gonna set these aside. So I have kind of made a decision on the wheels, and it was pretty much mostly the majority of people said, as much as these wheels are pretty cool, and I bet you if I, touched them up with some detailer, they probably would look better, but I think I am going to go with the kit wheels. I don't know if I'm going to stick with them being gold, although just now I just saw on the kit wheel we got a little chunk out of it. That might change my mind. I don't know. We'll see. But see how this one is. The other two are on the tree, so now if there's one on the tree, and I might be able to live with it. Anyways, I like these because there's less turbines or spokes or fins, so it looks better. The other ones kind of make it look like it's a wire wheel. Learn something that if you go check out this article, I'm going to have a link in below. And we have a new YouTuber. I'm going to give him a little shout out because he put his first video on his USACC build. Chris Martin, he writes these great articles on the history of model kits. It just kind of runs down from the first kit, and if they would reissue new ones and the whole history. But he did an excellent article on these Monogram 55 F-100s. Go check that out. I'll have a link in the description below, but right here is you can write this down right there. But he now has started his own YouTube channel called The Model Car Review, and his first video, go check it out right there. It's him jumping into this year's USACC build. Chris brings some great knowledge and insight of these kits, and one thing that I learned from his article reading it, there was actually in the instructions of the first issue of this van. Luka, use your brains, would you? What are these called? Panel van. Thank you. Actually had instructions on how to cut holes for the custom glass to go in there. I'm not going to do that because I have a different plan, but that definitely is something to think about. I'm going to hold on to these. I got a plan for these for another van later on, maybe. Anywho, we're gonna. Yeah, we already talked about that. I don't think that I'm eligible anymore. Get that out of the way. We're gonna put that right there. I want to look at this frame and suspension. That's what we're going to concentrate on. I want to get to the suspension because I want to talk about the suspension. Actually, the suspension is very interesting to me. I do have everything else. All right, so we're going to get all the suspension pieces taken off here. Let me get these wheels and tires out the way. And there's our frame. And let's go ahead and, oh, I bet you guys, are you still happy that I finally bought a pair of these? Now we'll be doing this right. Wait, I need some of my eyewear. Okay. Let's go ahead and cut away. Boy, wow. Totally missed that. This is going to be very interesting because I'm sure a lot of you guys, this is strange, we're working on a Ford truck, yet we see what looks to be the K member and lower control arms and torsion bars from a MOPAR. What the heck? What was Monogram thinking?
Oh gosh!
I'm going to tell you what they're thinking. You're going to hear it right here on this channel, in this video, shortly. I'm not going to worry about that right now, but let's get our, what looks to be probably a second or a third gen Corvette rear end here. Independent rear end. We're going to take all the parts off because that's what I want to play with. Dang. Come on, come on, come on. You can do it. Get that off. And, oh my goodness, look at that. We got a CB radio. I'm going to be using that. That's very cool. So do we got that? Oh, we got some shocks. And some coilovers. We'll take all those. And that might be another piece of the suspension, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. I think we can get a good idea on our mocking up. So, what we have for front suspension, let's take a look at this frame. What kind of work am I going to have to do to this frame to make it look acceptable? If there's not a lot of parting lines and ejector pin marks. All the ejector pin marks, they're where they're hidden. So, let's see. Let's just pop this on here, give it a little test run of where it goes. I always like this, the pins and the separate frame. I can see here I'm going to have to get rid of that right there. I'm going to have to get rid of that and that. The bummer is we've got some, oh, and there and there. We got some texture though, and I'm going to lose some of that texture. There's some bad ones there, but you know what? I'm not going to get that. That's going to be very hard to get rid of. These, I'll be able to get rid of them, but those right there are going to be a challenge. We're going to have to think of another way of hiding those. So they just can't be seen. We can't tolerate that. Anyways, it looks like this thing fits right into place right there. Already with all the texture, you can see the contrast difference. That's pretty cool. But as far as the frame's concerned, and we'll leave that right there. Doesn't look like I'm going to have to do a lot. Just a little sanding, a little this and that. There's a parting line there. This will be a really easy one. But let's do a little test fit. Let's talk about this front suspension. The upper control arms are molded onto the top of the frame, but we have ourselves a, let's see how the K frame fits into that hole, that hole, that hole. Oh. It wants to go all sideways on me. Try that again. Fit that in, fit that in, fit that in, fit that in. Fits on there real nice. And to get that lower, Fred Henry, he did a video. I just can't do a good snap with my left hand. Check that video out about lowering these. It's just a simple way of lowering these. It's pretty cool. I might do my lowering pretty similar to what he does. Because we got, I don't know, this doesn't want, there we go. Because I'm wanting to lower this, so I know I want to bring this up a little farther, which doesn't look like that'll be a difficult thing to do. Now, let's talk about the fact that we have here, oh, and there's the shocks. I know that those will go in there. That's why there's such a big gap, because the shocks take up that space. So there's a way for the shocks to fit in there. Anyways, let's talk about this MOPAR in an old Ford truck. Why the heck did Monogram do a MOPAR front suspension? Luka's going to tell you.
Wait, what?
Let's go into the Wayback Machine. When Luka was a little guy, now I was about 17, 18 years old. I had this girl. She wasn't my girlfriend. She was a good friend of mine. I hung out with her, a bunch of us. We all hung out at her house. Her dad was a hot rod builder and had a shop in the backyard. This was like 1985. And I used to go over there and I'd hang out with him. His name was Gene. He's another one of those older guys that really influenced. I was like just getting into, wait, I think I want to do some really cool stuff with cars. I was really interested in painting cars. I remember there was this hot rod magazine that came out, How to Paint Your Car, and they were going to do a whole series, and it got me excited. And I actually saw that magazine. He had just got it and was laying on his coffee table. That's the kind of influence. That right there, that moment was probably the starting point for my life with 1-1 vehicles. And Gene was always really cool, talk to me. I go out into his shop and BS with him. But what he was working on, he had bought out of the junkyard a 1956 Ford F-100. And he specifically went for the 56. Because a lot of you don't know, you have your 53 to 55s. You see that A-pillar that's slanted? Well, look at this. The 56, why all the hot rodders wanted them. You see how that A-pillar straight and it's parallel with the B-pillar? Well, heck, when you want to do a chop top, whack those 4 pillars and drop that top down. Easy chop top. Although he didn't chop his, but it made the 56 was just the desirable out of all the 53s through 56 Fords, F-100s. So he had this. I watched him strip that baby down, and he hot rodded that sucker out. And the thing is back then there weren't places that made prefabricated suspension pieces. So hot rodders went to the junkyard, even in the 80s. They went to the junkyard and grabbed stuff that was available in the junkyard. Unbelievable, the stuff that was, you go into the junkyard in the 80s, there was tons of muscle cars, and they weren't a lot of money back then. Corvettes, nothing, man. And he did this mod to this truck. I watched him build it, and what he did is he got, I think, out of a Challenger, he got the K-member and all this. The reason why this was a popular mod back then for the guys that were into those trucks. Back in the 80s, late 70s, 80s, it's like, you know how the craze is for the Chevy Square Body? That's the hot truck right now. The 56 Ford F-100 was the king of the hot rodded trucks back in the late 70s and through the early to mid 80s. It was because it was so easy to like chop that top. I knew a couple of old guys. There was another dude that I talked about earlier, why I bought this kit and building the panel van. He did this all too. It was a popular truck to do that because it was so easy to mod out. Because you had such a basic frame here that everything fit in, that measured perfectly, and these K members unbolted right out of the MOPAR unibody, and it was really easy to even make brackets and what to just bolt this right in, and everything bolted right in into the Ford frame. Very easy to fabricate and make it work and be safe and everything. But this is why these guys liked the torsion bar K-member setup out of MOPARs. Little chassis.
What? No.
Oh, I love doing that. I hope I make people mad. Here's a little bit of chassis knowledge for you, suspension knowledge. You know, whenever you see a MOPAR, there's no coil springs like in most cars. There's lots of times in between the upper and lower control arm, you have coil springs, not on a MOPAR front end chassis. That is what the torsion bar is.
What?
The torsion bar is the spring. That is sprung steel. You have this, it's splined here and fits in, so it holds. And what happens is when your lower control arm goes up and down, it basically is twisting that rod, and that is your spring. Simple as that. That's how they figured it out. What's so cool about torsion bar suspensions? You had a bolt here and a bolt here. With an air gun, count your turns. You could raise and lower your car all day long. Simple. With 2 bolts. Simple. You could change your ride height in a heartbeat. Easy suspension to lower the front. Then, the C2 and C3 Corvettes got you an independent, very simple but strong independent rear suspension. This was another mod that was very, very popular with the Ford F-100 boys. So this center section already would be up pretty high, and you could put this anywhere you want. And this right here, your center section of your rear end, would get fixed, solid, bolted to the frame. And then you would have your rear suspension here. Here's your rear suspension. And let's just say that that center section is still there. There's your rear suspension. There's your half shafts, which are little tiny drive shafts with U-joints in them. And they did a pretty simple thing, but they kind of show those off. And there's where your rear end fits in there. And there, that gives you your whole independent rear suspension right there. Pretty basic independent suspension, but it worked. Independent suspension, the cool thing, again, easy to raise and lower, because when you're raising and lowering this, because you got a turning point here and a turning point there, you can, to a degree, you can have this, you basically have your rear end center solid, and you can have your half shafts or prop shafts kind of going at an angle, but your camber of your rear wheel will stay straight up and down on how you set it up. Very simple, easy. Go to the junkyard. You probably spent about $100 in total in the whole suspension, and you had yourself an easy lowering suspension, adjustable suspension for your Ford F-100s. That is why Monogram wanted to do a hot rod version of these trucks. That was the hot ticket for the day, and that's why they did that. So the questions out there, I've heard that. Why do they have these weird suspension components? Corvette rear suspension, torsion bar, MOPAR front end. That didn't make sense. That's why it was one of the most common and simple mods to do to these chassis to get those trucks lowered. And I'm going to take advantage of that, because I'm dropping this baby in the weeds. Heck yeah. It'll sit about right there. And that gives me an idea. You can see where that is. I'm going to get that thing. Got to get that spindle up closer to that upper ball joint, and we will have a slammed down truck. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to do some figuring. And like I said, go check out, I'll throw it right up there. Go over to Fred Henry's channel. It's called Fred Henry, or he is, there you go. West Georgia Rods and Customs. My buddy Fred, he did a really cool video a long time ago. Real simple way of lowering these. And that's what I'm going to probably do to this. Go watch his video. He already did it. I can just do it without you guys breathing down my neck. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Don't get mad. I love it when you guys come over and check out what I'm working on. That's why I always invite you into my model room, because I'm always having fun with model cars. And isn't that why we do these model cars, right? Because they're fun. Okay, here's the producers.